think there's such a beautiful connection that the Lord showed me, like between music and faith and how they come together.
When did you realize you weren't too far gone for God to intervene?
I would say it's probably like at my lowest point. I've had such a journey of like ups and downs. My lowest points were when I was battling with drugs, alcohol, a lot of bad habits, and I had nowhere to turn. It was a big moment that made me like really carry my own faith. Was when we got to do outreach in our community. This Christian organization, they booked out my secondary school, my high school place to worship. But during that time, we were pushed to go out, do community outreach. We were painting people's houses.
Oh, wow.
We were cleaning up gardens. Like, I didn't fit into Cambridge in a way. Like, anyone who wants to do anything creatively, I'm like, that's something that's on your heart that has to come out. You have to express it.
What was that process like, walking with God in that situation in your life?
I guess it was a mixture of walking with him
Yeah.
and walking away. In fact, in many ways, like running in a different direction. Like, I had a very tough time, like moving out of like secondary school where they were very like they were still pro music, pro like performing arts. I loved that. Like, I learned a lot there, into quite a academic focused college. I spent a month there, and that was a very, very tough month. I was no longer in that bubble anymore. Then I moved to the States.
Now, you mentioned walking away from the Lord, coming back to the Lord. What's made you come back to him, or what's triggered you to be like, okay, I've tried life without you, it's not gone well?
During lockdown, I was really going on a path where like I was losing my faith. It led to like a lot of dabbling in partying, doing drugs, drinking alcohol, like to the extreme. Like, I was not well. The change is blatant. The wildest journey, transformation's an understatement. Since the motive been another motive, pull up to focus on vital healing. Now progress hella explosive, pure meditation is all I needed. Mind, body and soul get fed with the word of truth, and it's all in reading, watching, working, feeding, following the greatness in every season.
Wow.
It wasn't like anything completely new, but it did feel like accessing something that I hadn't had before, like a new fire. You know, that's part of the reason why I wanted to come back up to Manchester. Like, I had a taste of what it was like to share the gospel and use music and use creativity to share the gospel. Process honestly looked like healing. There were so many transitions and so many situations that needed some space, essentially, just to heal and to walk through the Lord with that, and walk through some professionals.
Hello and welcome back to Christian Catch Up. I am your host, Chloe Knight, and I have a fantastic guest with me here today. Before we get into it, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Please follow us on TikTok and Instagram. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Nat James. Hello. How are you?
I'm doing well, doing great. I just noticed the sun has come out for the first time today. That's good.
First time in 3 months, eventually. So we know each other just from going to the same church. I think we actually met the first time at a business event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is right.
And you work closely with the videographer Cole because you travelled in Norway. Just tell us a bit about you. What do you do? What do you work as, for everyone who doesn't know?
Yeah. I guess first and foremost, my main kind of work is as an artist, as a music artist. I record and I write songs, and I'm massively passionate about other people doing the same thing. So yeah, that's kind of what I do day to day. I'm doing a lot of writing, and we are also this year just starting kind of another mission into schools and working with young people and inspiring them, sharing the gospel, doing all of that. And yeah, like, I guess that has been a part of my story for the past 6-7 years as well. Like, over time, worked with different bands, different musicians. And yeah, I think there's such a beautiful connection that the Lord showed me, like between music and faith and how they come together, how music is such a great tool for others. And for me in my life, like, music is so important to me. It's kind of all around. Like, I try and immerse myself in that world as much as possible. So yeah, music artist is kind of That's me.
Fantastic. Now let's get into it. So the first question that I'm going to be asking you is something that I ask at sort of every interview.
Okay.
Okay, are you ready?
I'm ready. Here we go.
When did you realize you weren't too far gone for God to intervene?
Okay. Yeah, that is a great question. I would say it's probably like at my lowest point. Um, so like for those that know or don't know my story, like I've kind of been like I grew up in a kind of Christian background, Christian home, grew up going to church, all of that, but I've had such a journey of like ups and downs. And I really think that like my lowest points were when when I was battling with drugs, alcohol, kind of a lot of bad habits, and I had nowhere to turn. And I think in that kind of season that I was in, I really, really recognized that the Lord was kind of just there, and he really picked me up from that season and just like transformed me, changed my heart. Like I needed so much like healing during that time. So yeah, like that definitely stands out as a time like I realized like no matter how bad I have kind of carried myself or done my life, like made the decisions that I'm not proud of, that I regret, he'll pick me out of it and he'll kind of draw me closer to him. So yeah, I'd say that.
So you mentioned growing up in a Christian household, but when did you specifically find God then?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about this week, and I think the best way of putting it for me, because all of the faith stuff, the church life, like was introduced to me so young, it's almost felt like finding God has been a practice, and it's less so in my life anyway, it's less so like a transformational moment. Although I feel like I did have that, but much later on, which I'm sure we can get into.
Definitely.
Yeah, but like I really feel like daily is the right amount of time to find God again. Like it's like you always have to draw close to him, or I feel like it's like I I think he's the source for everything, right? So yeah, I think maybe around 13, 14 was the time that I was like, okay, my faith is my own a little bit more. And that was massively helped by like going to youth groups and youth weekends away in the church. Like I was super blessed to be a part of that and in a community that really like fed into my faith and my understanding. And from there, yeah, I'd say like, do you know what I think was a big moment that made me like really carry my own faith was when we got to do outreach in our community. So
Wow.
so we were on a week long, like, kind of, what do you call it? There's like a week long festival or some kind of
Like big fest, but longer.
kind of, yeah, like more. I mean, I guess it's really weird actually. We stayed, so this Christian organization, they booked out my secondary school, my high school, and essentially they booked it out as a place to worship and a place to like people would stay over there. So people came from all over the country to be in my secondary school. It was like such as it was brilliant. But like I was like, okay, this is cool, let's go.
Yeah.
But during that time, I really like we were pushed to go out, do community outreach. We were painting people's houses.
Oh wow.
We were cleaning up gardens, like really just down to earth stuff that helps people. And we were also sharing the gospel with them and with other young people around. So I'm like 14 years old, 15, doing this. And I think that really drew something together where I was like, actually, yeah, I can't really stand on anyone else but God. When you're having a conversation about him and you truly care for the soul of the person you're talking to, like that's a real like defining moment. I think for anyone, but especially for me at that young age.
So growing up in Cambridge then, what was that like? Come on.
Oh wow. Yeah, Cambridge was it's a beautiful place. I love
Gorgeous. Everyone, you think of Cambridge, think of Oxford. You think of Oxford, you think of Cambridge, the university.
The university.
How much does it like to live there?
Yeah, to live there, I guess. So it felt a little bit like I look at it now with a different perspective, but I guess was a little bit of a bubble.
Yeah.
And it was good. Like that was a good thing at the time, I think. Like I felt very protected in that environment. My school was still very diverse. Like I still had a taste of many different kind of environments and situations and stuff. And I just like it was blessed. Like I had like my family, God bless them, they were really kind of rooted for me and just were super supportive. And I thank God for that. Like that is not everyone's story, and I'm grateful that I got to grow up with in that environment. And yeah, Cambridge, like it was a blessed place. It just I guess didn't really fit like I didn't fit into Cambridge in a way, like in
What do you mean by
that.
that?
Specifically, what I mean is when I started getting into music, which again was around like 13, 14, I'd grown up kind of music all around me, loved, all of that. But writing music was that age. And I felt like as a rapper, like
Yeah.
rap is truly like my main thing. So writing lyrics and raps and all of that does not fit the Cambridge kind of like persona in any way. And I remember facing like a lot of comments and like almost like opposition like at school, like people kind of like, why are you trying to do this, like who are you? And it was so like strange to have that kind of uh that kind of negativity around, because I mean now I look back, I'm like, anyone who wants to do anything creatively, I'm like, that's something that's on your heart that has to come out, you have to express it. So to be in that environment definitely was interesting. It's part of the reason that I live in Manchester now, and I love Cambridge all the same. I still like that's home for me. But yeah.
But it was that simple transition from just Cambridge straight to Manchester. There was a bit of back and forth in between that. What was that process like, walking with God in that situation in your life?
Yeah, I guess it was a mixture of walking with him
Yeah.
and walking away. In fact, in many ways, like running in a different direction, like, just being a teenager that makes silly decisions, I think is definitely my story.
So true, yeah.
Yeah, like I had a very tough time like moving out of like secondary school, where they were very like they were still pro music, pro like performing arts. I loved that. Like I learned a lot there, into quite a academic focused college. I spent a month there, and that was a very, very tough month of just it was coming away from everything I knew into really like real life in a sense, like I was no longer in that bubble anymore. It was like a larger world that I had to, kind of go through. And that was very tough. And then I moved to the States. I moved to America a month later. So I spent a month in that college.
Wow.
Yeah, like a very, very interesting way of doing, kind of like 16, 17 years old. My family, essentially, my dad got a new job in the States.
Okay, so it was like you followed your dad
Yes.
for that. Okay.
Yeah.
Do they work in the creative background as well then?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Like,
it's like, no.
they're creative in different ways.
Okay.
My dad works in the science field,
Yeah.
in the pharmaceutical industry, and so and my mum is a teacher. We all moved over there as a family, my brother, my sister, mum and dad, and like restarted life out there. So I think what God's taught me in that, and like walking with him and battling through a lot, has been like this self-confidence journey. And God's just drawn out so much from me, so much weakness of like just character and so many things that I didn't know I had in me, that he wanted to pull out and replace with something better. So yeah, throughout that time was very, very tough from like a point of view of, like identity and knowing who I truly am.
Yeah.
And I think that's an ongoing journey. It will be till the day I go, like to truly know who I am in Christ. And the kind of path that I took to get to where I am today has been such a move away from like seeing other people's approval as my source for validation and, you know, self-acceptance, all of that. I was caught up in that kind of world. And yeah, it was really just a journey of like walking through some battles.
That's a lot though, because you've got Cambridge, Manchester, then the States, and then
Yeah.
you come back again.
Yeah.
But that's a huge transition each and every time. Now, you mentioned walking away from the Lord, coming back to the Lord. When you've been doing that, what's made you come back to him, or what's triggered you to be like, okay, I've tried life without you, it's not gone well, okay, I need to come back?
Yeah. If I'm honest, I really feel like I tried life without him.
Yeah.
Like I really, really went to the extremes almost of like, you know, just doing life on my own terms, doing whatever I want. And yeah, ultimately, like it came down to this moment, which I mentioned earlier, like this one kind of pivotal moment where, you know, this wasn't even that long ago, but during lockdown, I was really going on a path where I was like losing, like I was losing my faith, or maybe not losing my faith, but like, I didn't find like a relationship with God as important.
Okay.
And the result of that was like, oh, I'll go out and do my own thing. And like I mentioned earlier, it led to like a lot of like just dabbling in partying, doing drugs, drinking alcohol, like to the max, to the extreme. Like I was not well. My mental health was not in a good place. And through that, the Lord still wanted to work with me and do something with me.
Amen.
And he really just, he caught me in this moment of meditation, actually, which is my, I guess, it's really what allowed a door to open in my heart to back to him. In fact, I'm just thinking of a lyric, like a lyric to one of my songs, which I wrote about this kind of journey of transformation. And it says, the change is blatant, the wildest journey, transformation's an understatement. Since the motive been another motive, pull up to focus on vital healing. Now progress hella explosive, pure meditation is all I needed. What else is it? It's like, mind, body, and soul get fed with the word of truth, and it's all in reading, reading, watching, working, feeding, following the greatness in every season.
Wow.
That was like something I had to pen out.
Yeah.
About that story, and like the key line there, I guess, that relates is like meditation was almost all I needed. Like the scripture, like be still and know that I am God, is beautiful because it's like, I do not have to do anything that's inside of me to access the spirit and like to access God's love. I just have to wait and be still and let things settle a little bit. And that's what I did. That's kind of how I came to this place where the Lord was able to speak to me, and all of the noise, all of the like madness that I found myself caught up in faded.
Wow.
And it was in that stillness. It was like a full day of like meditating. I was out with a friend out in Sheffield, and he kind of he's, you know, key to that story. Like he kind of created that moment, helped me create that moment. And yeah, through that, the Lord spoke, and it felt like it reached deep enough into my heart to actually say like, yes, Lord, I do want to have a relationship with you. I do want to have another go at doing this, and I want to leave my old life behind.
So what was the process of you leading all of that behind then? What did that look like? What was there a certain revelation? What happened?
Yeah. I'd say because of my growing up in the faith, it was more just realigning back to what I knew.
Okay.
So it wasn't like anything completely new, but it did feel like accessing something that I hadn't had before, like a new fire. Like it did feel like a fresh fire. And you know, that's part of the reason why I wanted to come back up to Manchester. Like I had a taste of what it was like to share the gospel and use music and use creativity to share the gospel. And I really got hit again with that fresh fire. But like the process honestly looked like healing. Like it looked like a lot of like addressing things that I'd never addressed. Like all the moving about that I did from Cambridge to the States to Manchester for uni, back to Cambridge, where, you know, a lot of this tough stuff happened. And then, you know, like there were so many transitions and so many situations that needed some space, essentially, just to heal and to walk through the Lord with that, and walk through some professionals with that as well, which I truly like recommend to anybody who is dealing with something tough, something deep. It's like, go speak to somebody who
Therapy, I'm a huge advocate of, okay? I believe in therapy back to back alongside pastoral care, like absolutely. But being in the music space, like myself, like I dealt with substances when I was in the finance space, but it was a very common thing. Like my boss could give it me and it would just be like a normal thing. Do you know?
Yeah.
But with you as well in music, it's not uncommon in that industry to be heavily relying on drugs and alcohol the same way it is in finance. So because you're still within the music industry, how do you not sway back to people that may be around you that aren't Christian? And you think, oh, is this a bit triggering for me to go back down that route?
Yeah. Oh, it's so tricky because I remember like thinking about like what the glamour and the success looks like, right? And I remember at one point in my life I was truly like, oh, the party goers and like the people who were, you know, living the best life.
They just Wolf of Wall Street, don't you? Like, and it's just not that at all. That's the lowest point.
It's kind of backwards, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And the closer you draw to the Word of God, the more you see that, I think. So yeah, like it's it puts you in situations, I think, in music, especially when you're the live, like doing a lot of live music, like the kind of scene around there. It was, it's tricky, it's pressure, and that's where, you know, you have to be strong, and like, I think asking the Lord for strength in that is vital. But how do I stay kind of, I'd say I'm in a good place now, like with all of that. Hallelujah, like God, so good that I the way I work and the kind of, I guess the world I've like created in a way of like who I work with. Like I have disciplines and, like, as a business we'll call like policies, more like values, I guess, like that I'm just like, I won't enter into that. There's certain collaborations I want to take, not that they should never be taken, but more so that there's a time and a place for those certain things, and if I don't feel called to it, then I won't enter into that. But yeah, like,
do people think, why on earth does he turn that opportunity down sometimes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
When's the last time that happened then?
There's a ongoing kind of talks and a collaboration that I feel I could have pushed massively for, like, and just gone full send into that really would have changed my situation and my like, who knows me, you know, like something that would have blown me up, with essentially like a very, very, very well-known composer who's done kind of the top Hollywood films and just, you know, that worked on everything. Like, and I saw his an email come through on my inbox. It was Christmas time. I remember I was with family, saw it come through. I was like, this isn't this guy, is it?
Yeah.
What the heck? And this was more subtle, but it's something that I saw as like a red flag in a way, and it was more so like around the communication side. There's a lot of, like, with agreements in that area, there's so much contract and legal work to do that communication, like, to be effective and land on something incredible, like, communication has to be 10/10.
Yeah.
And I noticed that there was things that were slipping a lot of times in comms and in emails and trying to get in touch with them was mad. And it essentially led me to a place where like I felt like I couldn't uphold a certain level of like my own values in that situation to actually navigate a collaboration. Like I could have done it,
Yeah.
but it would have not like led me to a place where I'm like, I'm happy with this. And I just think communication is so key, and especially being like the power dynamic and all of that. I know what goes on like in those spaces where people are taken advantage of because of where their position is in the industry or who they know. So I had to put that on the biggest slow burn, and I'm still in contact, and I still believe God's going to use that connection to bring something. And the reason why I think that is after maybe 2 years of like very slow back and forths, like just getting to know each other and not rushing. I had a message from the guy who he'd had time to like really take in the music and not do a rush job, which I feel can be very common. And he took in some lyrics that I'd written, essentially a song of my testimony. And it was incredible. That conversation was one that actually opened up a talk about God and about faith.
So is he a believer as well?
I'm not fully sure, but there's some level of faith there. And I just feel like I've had an opportunity to speak into that, like through the DMs, but also through that music. And I just see that specifically as something that when I saw the opportunity come up, I could have just jumped on it straight away. But I've had to hold that restraint and just make sure like I'm taking this in the Lord's timing, and there's no rush.
Yeah.
There's no doing it on their terms only and not mine.
Yeah.
If it's a true collaboration that's like tick green flag, it's got to be like respectful to both parties.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I think that has really opened the door by just like making sure I don't rush into anything.
That's so interesting though. So like you mentioned, obviously people can be taken advantage of, especially with like the power dynamic. If you're coming from like a certain level, you've been in this industry 40 years and you're not even 40. So it's like you're catching up to people and things like that. How do you avoid making sure that does happen to you, or has it already happened to you?
I think I've been very protective of that.
Yeah.
And I've made sure that at each level there is like boundaries that I know that I want to hit with every collaboration. Amazing. every deal. Like a lot of my work is around contracts and legal, and making sure like multiple different parties are like in like all kind of locked in. And I'm definitely not like an expert in that world. Like, and I think as you probably like seeing in business, the more that we look at our strengths, we recognize our weakness and where we need to hire into our weaknesses, right?
Like this room, I know they can't see it, but it's full of the real creatives that make this podcast happen. There's a videographer, there's a producer. It's just like there's a whole team behind absolutely everything. I'm so glad that you brought light to that.
Yeah.
But it must be lonely for you though, because I'm thinking, you know, when we were just talking about substances using, but I was with a whole team, you know, like I was in the finance office, and yeah, I could have my own separate offices sometimes, or it could be like around a lot of people, but I was going through it almost like these were my family. They absolutely were not, but it felt like they were. Whereas you're a freelancer at this point. How do you balance not being lonely, and how do you balance like not bartering off each other and thinking, oh, this is okay because that person did this 3 times this week, or whatever it may be? What was challenging loneliness like for you at that point?
It is, I think, a natural battle that you have to go through, like as a freelancer. Some people, I think it suits their personality or the way that they're made.
Yeah.
And that's great for them. Like that's really good if you're, freelance and you like your own time. I think I enjoy it to a certain degree, but I love being around people too. So it's it's one, first of all, that you choose. I think, like, you know, if anyone's thinking about going freelance, like, it is a lonely road to travel sometimes. And what I guess I've seen in that space is like it does create room for you to be with the Lord. Like, you're on your own schedule, and making sure you're efficient and you work well is super important. And you're around, like, even in certain rooms and certain spaces that like facilitate good work. But yeah, like, I think it does create room for being with the Lord, and that's a massive win. So like, whenever I've been super super lonely, and there's been many times where I'm like, I'm fighting for this thing, and for me, like, majority of my work is in the online space, so it adds this extra feeling of not of like isolation, because I can talk to 100 people and not see any of them face to face.
Wow.
Like, it's yeah, it's the online space is how it works, right? But within that, like, just making sure that you are creating time and space for people to support you, like coaches, mentors, you know, being around your church community is like super important. And I can say honestly, like, I've struggled with that. Like, there's been plenty of times where I've chosen to be isolated and alone instead of with people. And I like, if I could go back, I would probably do it different. But yeah, it's tough, but it's a blessing as well.
But I listen to you and I'm like, oh, this is Nat James. Like, he knows the music industry. It's no surprise whatsoever. But you've ministered and you've performed at small schools, for example, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
But then I've seen videos of you traveling all around Europe, being in festivals with tens of thousands of people listening to you. That's a huge high to be on,
Yeah.
and it's a huge different dynamic. How do you manage going from performing in front of however many people to 100 people? What's that like for you?
It's actually really funny, like, how important it is, I think, to transition. Like, when you've gone on a trip where you just live, like, life looks very different. It's very, I mean, with a good team, which ideally you have in any like music trip, like, you've got a lot of people supporting you and essentially there to serve you, like, so you can serve when you're on platform, when you're on the stage. And first of all, it's an amazing team dynamic. I think that's like such a fun part of it. And yeah, like, really, I think if you look at gifting, it's God that uses it and God that impacts the room and the people. So no matter where you are, like, if you're doing his work, then that is what success looks like. And yeah, I think a massive key that I've found is, especially on the big trips where you have a lot of people tending to you, and a lot of like the hype and the crowd engagement. It's really really important to, when you come back, and I know a good few creators and musicians in the Christian scene who do this, when they come back to real life.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is. Like, real life is the regular. Like, I don't think there's a real life that looks like you're doing, you know, the tour life all the time. That's not, I don't think, sustainable.
Yeah.
But when you come back, it's like that transition period of making sure you talk through everything, like speak to somebody and really get everything out your system, because you see some incredible things and it's worth talking through it. I think actually hopping on a podcast straight after you come back, could be awesome, because you get to tell testimony.
Yes.
Yeah, but like, on top of that, it's really just, I had a story of a famous band who would, after their tours, they would actually book an Airbnb for a week, as I think it was like a 5 of them, so they could reconcile with going back and doing their washing and cleaning their own dishes and like cooking food.
It's like you're literally coming back to life.
Yeah. And they would do it. I believe, like, I don't fully know, but I believe they did that as a group because they had that unique experience together.
Mm-hmm.
And the reconciling, like, coming back to that life is quite important, you know, because that's real life. And yeah, just creating room for that shift back into kind of the regular is so important.
Christianity has so many buzzwords. So, for example, dying to your flesh or worldly ways and things like that. And it's often associated with creative spaces. So you can see worldly ways in music, for example, but you're a Christian artist at that point. So when you're seeing all of this stuff happen around you at that point, what would you say? Oh, okay, I need to remove myself from this situation, even if it does cost me like an opportunity.
Yeah. Um, just do what the Lord says. Like God has your back. God has my back. He looks out for his children. So to remove yourself, as Jesus did many times, like he walked the line, like he's an example of someone who walked that line of being public and being private, and having a strong and extremely fruitful spiritual life, like while he was doing this ministry. So like that, for example, that is an example that is worth taking a look at and studying. But yeah, like the reality is like that's where the fruit comes in. Like that's where the fruit comes from, is like making those tough decisions, the disciplined decisions, where, like you say, like you have to die to your flesh. Like everything about, like in the moment might feel like, oh, I really want to, like, you know, do an extra a day with this group of people and, like, you know, do another music set and all of this. But if the Lord's telling you, and this comes from practicing like the way of being in the spirit, living by the spirit, but like if it's leading you to a place of privacy, a place of solitude and not isolation, but a place where you can just be with the Lord, like that's where you get your strength, that's where you're refreshed. And as backwards as it might seem, that is the most fruitful path that I think is so necessary to like lean into.
You know, when I have like a discovery call with people that come on the podcast, I always say, you know, are there any accolades that you want me to point towards or anything like that? And I asked you the same question, and you're the only person that came back with my prayer life. My prayer life is the most proud thing going on in my life, and it sounds like it's forever going to be. Wow. And I think that's such a testament to who you are. But prayer and a prayer life alone takes a lot to build up. It's not something that, you know, it's always amazing and fantastic, because it depends on the pits and falls of your life. But what decision have you had in your prayer life where you think, I'm so glad I prayed about it. I'm so glad I prayed about it, because through prayer, God's just said, go for it or not to go for it.
Do you know what? I don't think there's been so many like massive moments. It's more of like being in that space continually. So like, for example, there's a few times where I've been led to speak to someone on the street, or like, you know, just something simple, where, or like to accept a music gig that does not on paper look like, so, you know, I remember traveling like half the length of the UK to get to a small youth group where there was probably no more than 13, 14 young people. And that was not like something on paper, especially with my schedule that I had lined up. Like, it on paper didn't look like it should fit, but I felt like a blessing over it. So I think like times like that, and you know, that night was amazing. Like, we saw people get saved, and yeah, like that's the impact right there. That's like, okay, yes, it might not be 10,000 people where, you know, like a big church festival where you see hundreds, if not thousands of people give their lives at one time.
Wow.
But like, God cares for the one and for the individual. So I'm just as happy with that kind of moment, that small, intimate kind of interaction and experience. But yeah, like, just like leaning into those smaller moments where I feel like you access more and more when you're consistently active in prayer.
You traveled so much. And I'm not just talking about, you know, what you've done this year, for example, and we're very much into quarter 1. But I just want to, you've seen so many Christian faiths and cultures come together. Now we both live in England. What do you think we could learn from them?
Ooh, that's a great question. Um, hmm. Because I've worked with mainly youth and the younger generation, I think something that I've seen over there, which is just so brilliant, is, and mainly in like school spaces and youth events, like I've seen a freedom in the young people that I think could be amazing to see in the UK more.
Wow.
And it's around, I'd say, the idea of self-conscious living and just like over in many places in Europe that we've been in, it's like we've seen young people just express themselves more and be so happy to just do the thing that I feel if it was done in the UK in certain like school environments or youth environments, you might be seen as cringe.
Yeah.
And like the reality I think is that it sucks when you do something that's truly just you, and someone else has something negative to say about that. That's not. It's not a great environment, but I think that builds resilience in other ways. But to see a freedom, like when I think of this, I'm like, okay, what? I pray that in the next 100 years, like we see a slow movement into this area in the UK, because I know that stuff takes so much time culturally. But yeah, just like a new freedom found in the younger generation when they're okay expressing themselves.
And just to round it all off, now I'm not going to pretend like you have not done so many impressive things. Like, wow. But if you took it away, like all of your accolades, all that you've done, and you weren't as blessed as you currently have been, and in Jesus' name, you will be so much more. Do you think you'd still have the same calling that you do have right now?
Well, that's a lot. First of all, thank you. Um, it's tricky to say because, so short answer, yes.
Perfect.
But I would say that like I don't find any of what I do easy.
Yeah.
And some things obviously they like the creativity side, the songwriting side, I think comes really naturally. But the public moments like are not my favorite thing. Like you guys know as we spoke before this pod, like I find it difficult to get into the space where I know things are going to be super public.
And that's so surprising to me. That's so surprising. Wow.
It's an interesting one, right? But to be honest, I think that wherever the Lord wants me is where I want to end up. So if that means, like if he took everything away, then I still feel just as empowered to do the same thing. Like it doesn't feel like an asset would be taken away from me.
Wow.
Because the asset truly is just a relationship and the closeness in Christ.
And that's like true obedience at that point. Like you've built that over time, and it's courage to keep on doing that, because some people may say that you've got something to lose at this point because you've done so much greatness. Whereas if you have nothing to lose, you're like, oh, okay, I gave it a shot. But the fact that you're still going to, I'm going to say obedient to God, I'm still going to do anything that he calls me to do. That's the kind of faith that we need. And it's like you're exemplifying what you want young children to do and what you're calling them to do. Whether they look cringe when they're 12 and they're making whatever video they want to, but it's okay because everybody starts off cringe and that's okay. Do you know what I mean? Like you better have that kind of audaciousness about you to be like
my first track was like just on the creativity side, like my first song, not good. I don't think anyone's first song necessarily is something they're like, oh, let me show this.
Oh yeah, really about this episode of the podcast, I'm like, do I delete that? You can't. That's a learning curve.
It's a beautiful journey of growth, and I think of like someone I've looked up to a lot in the marketing space is Gary Vaynerchuk.
Okay.
And he is a mad guy, mad character, but like he is such an advocate for showing the journey of growth in your business, in your life as an influencer, even just like to share your story and for people to actually see I wasn't good then, but here it is. it's authentic, and it's beautiful to see the journey of growth. I think it builds faith in others to do the same thing if they're inspired by what you do. So yeah, just keeping true to that is important, I think.
What a character, Nat James, you are. I love this conversation. You pour so much into other people, and with everything that you decide and everything that you do, you put God first. You think, does God want me to do this? And you pray with him.
I try.
But that's amazing. A lot of people still haven't figured that out. And you're still so young, so you've got so much to come. And I'm so thankful that you've come on the show. And I just appreciate everything. So thank you.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. Well, guys, that is it for this week. The next episode will be coming same time on Friday. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Of course, please follow us on Instagram and TikTok. But until next week, I'm your host, Chloe Knight. Bye-bye.